The Awakening. When Ethan Ward opened his eyes, the world was not what he remembered. Cold air touched his skin and bright white light filled his vision. For a moment he thought he was still dreaming, until he felt something heavy pressing against his chest. When his eyes cleared, he saw her. A young alien woman with silver eyes and pale blue skin was on top of him, holding him down. Her hands glowed softly, like liquid light flowing through her fingers. Ethan tried to move, but a sharp pain shot through his body. "Stay still," she said in a trembling voice. "You're still bleeding inside." Her accent was strange but gentle, her voice calm yet filled with fear. Ethan's soldier instincts kicked in, his heart racing. He looked around and saw metallic walls curved like the inside of a ship. The sound of engines echoed somewhere far away. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. "Who are you?" he managed to whisper. The alien girl's hands pressed harder against his chest, and the light from her palms grew brighter. "Don't talk," she said. "Your heart almost stopped. I'm trying to fix it." Ethan wanted to fight back, but the pain was too much. He closed his eyes and felt warmth spreading through his chest. When he opened them again, the glow had faded. She looked exhausted, sweat shining on her forehead. Slowly, she leaned back, breathing heavily, her eyes full of worry. Ethan pushed himself up on his elbows, staring at her. "Where am I?" he asked. The girl looked away, avoiding his eyes. "You're safe. For now," she said quietly. "But you shouldn't be awake yet." Her words confused him even more. He checked his uniform, torn and burned, the mark of war still on it. Memories came rushing back. Explosions, screams, his team shouting through static. The last thing he remembered was a blinding light and silence. "How did I get here?" he asked, his voice weak. The alien girl hesitated, her hands shaking. "I found you. Floating," she said. "Your ship was gone." Ethan frowned. "Floating? You mean in space?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, near the ruins of Delta 9. That name hit him like a shockwave. Delta 9 was the battlefield where thousands had died, where the last human fleet vanished. He sat up fully, ignoring the pain in his ribs. "What happened to the others?" he asked. Her eyes darkened. There were no others. The words cut through him like a blade. He stared at her, unsure if she was lying or pitying him. "Why did you save me?" he asked. Her lips trembled. "Because I had to." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Had to? What does that mean?" She stood up slowly, her white robe falling around her like mist. "You wouldn't understand," she whispered. "Not yet." He tried to stand, but his legs gave out. The alien rushed to help him, her small hands surprisingly strong. Her touch was warm, human-like. He looked at her again. Her face was soft, her eyes glowing faintly. There was sadness in her gaze, the kind of sadness that came from years of hiding. She led him to a small metallic chair beside the glowing bed. He sat, still dizzy, his eyes scanning the strange room. There were alien symbols carved on the walls and faint humming from machines he didn't recognize. "What is this place?" he asked. "My home," she said softly. "A medical vessel. What's left of it?" Ethan noticed the ship's lights flickering, the faint vibration under his feet. "Why are you alone?" he asked. She froze for a second before replying. "Because everyone else is dead." The room fell silent, only the low hum of the engine filling the air. Ethan rubbed his temples, trying to understand. "So, you found me in space, healed me, and now I'm on your ship," he said slowly. "Yes," she answered, "but you can't stay awake for long. Your body still needs rest." He ignored her warning, staring directly into her silver eyes. "You still haven't told me your name." Her voice was quiet, almost afraid. "Lyra," she said. "My name is Lyra." Ethan nodded. "All right, Lyra, then tell me the truth." She turned away, walking toward a small round window where stars drifted outside. "The truth?" she repeated softly. "You don't want that." Ethan stood, his voice stronger now. I've seen worse. Lyra faced him slowly, her expression unreadable. Her glowing eyes met his, and for a long moment she said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke. I wasn't supposed to save you, she said. I was supposed to kill you. Ethan froze, his mind racing. The air felt heavier, the lights dimmed as if the ship itself reacted to her words. He took a slow step back, staring at her in disbelief. You're lying, he said. But she shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. No, Ethan Ward, she whispered. I was your enemy. The silence stretched between them. Outside, the stars shimmered in endless darkness. Ethan didn't know what to say. All he knew was that the woman who had saved his life had just confessed she was meant to end it. And as her glowing hands dimmed to nothing, one thought echoed in his mind. Why did she choose to save me instead? But what happened next changed everything. The secret Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat on the cold floor of the alien vessel, staring at the faint blue lights that pulsed along the walls. Lyra had gone silent after her confession, avoiding his eyes, avoiding every question. She moved quietly through the narrow corridors, cleaning, repairing, doing anything except explaining what she meant. But Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her words. I was supposed to kill you. When he finally spoke again, his voice was calm but sharp. Why didn't you? Lyra froze, her hands clutching a piece of broken equipment. You wouldn't understand, she said softly without turning around. Then make me understand, Ethan replied. She looked at him then, her silver eyes reflecting the dim lights, her face pale and tired. There was an order, she said. Your name was on it. A human soldier marked as a threat to the Pact. Ethan frowned. The Pact? Between who? Between your peoples and mine, she whispered. A peace that was never real. The ship trembled slightly as if reacting to her words. Outside the viewport, stars drifted by, distant and cold. Ethan walked closer, his voice low but steady. So you saved me to ease your guilt? Lyra shook her head. No, Ethan. I saved you because I remembered. He blinked, confused. Remembered what? She hesitated, her fingers trembling. Something you don't. Those words hit him like a storm. What are you talking about? He asked. Lyra didn't answer. She turned away and started walking down the narrow hallway. Ethan followed her, his boots echoing on the metal floor. They entered a small control room filled with alien runes glowing faintly on curved panels. Lyra touched one of the panels, and a holographic image appeared. Swirling fragments of a battlefield, human ships burning, alien warships collapsing, bodies drifting in silence. This was the last battle, she said quietly, the day everything ended. Ethan stared at the image, his chest tightening. He saw himself, his armor marked with the insignia of the Terran Defense Corps, leading a team through the wreckage. The memory felt real and yet distant, like something seen through fog. I remember this, he whispered. We were evacuating the civilians. No, Lyra interrupted. You weren't evacuating anyone. She pointed to a shape in the hologram, a small figure trapped under fallen metal. It was her. You were saving me, she said. The air went still. Ethan felt his pulse quicken, his mind struggling to process it. He shook his head. That's impossible. I've never met you before. Lyra's expression softened, sadness in every word. They erased it, she said. Your commanders didn't want anyone to know a human soldier had protected the enemy's daughter. Daughter? Ethan repeated. Whose daughter? She looked at him then, eyes full of pain. The High General of the Varith Dominion, the one who started the war. Ethan stepped back, stunned. The realization hit him hard. She was the daughter of the very alien who had declared humanity as a threat to the galaxy. He tried to make sense of it, but nothing fit. Then why are you here? Why save me? Lyra's voice cracked. Because I owed you my life. Before he could speak, the ship's console beeped sharply, red lights flashing across the room. Lyra rushed to the control panel, pressing glowing symbols. What's happening? Ethan asked. They found us, she said, her tone shifting from sadness to fear. Ethan moved beside her, looking at the screen. Strange symbols flashing rapidly, coordinates pulsing. Who? The Dominion, she said. My people. They tracked my signature. The alarms grew louder. Ethan grabbed a weapon from the wall, a sleek alien rifle. But Lyra shook her head. No fighting, she said quickly. They'll destroy the whole ship if they detect aggression. Then what do you suggest? He snapped. She stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, We run. Before Ethan could argue, she grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward a narrow passageway. The ship trembled as energy blasts echoed outside, shaking the walls. Sparks rained from the ceiling as they stumbled through the corridors. They reached a small hangar bay where a single escape pod was waiting. Ethan stared at it. Small, old, and clearly unstable. You call this running? He asked. Lyra ignored him, pressing her glowing hand against the pod's console. The door slid open with a hiss. Get in, she said. Now. He hesitated, staring at her. What about you? She smiled faintly. I'm coming with you. The pod sealed shut, and through the small viewport, Ethan watched as the alien ship burned under a hail of fire. Lyra sat beside him, her breathing heavy, her face illuminated by the pod's flickering light. Outside, the stars stretched into blinding lines as they entered hyperspace. For a moment, silence filled the pod. Ethan looked at her, confusion and anger mixing in his eyes. You lied to me, he said quietly. She turned toward him, tears glimmering in her silver eyes. I had to, she whispered, because the truth would kill you. He leaned closer, his voice low and cold. Then start talking. Lyra? She met his gaze and said 6 words that froze his blood. Ethan, you were never fully human. The air seemed to vanish from the pod. Ethan's heartbeat thundered in his ears. He stared at her, speechless. What do you mean? He whispered. Lyra closed her eyes, her voice trembling. You were part of the same experiment that created me. Ethan could barely breathe. What experiment? She opened her eyes, glowing faintly in the darkness. The one that started the war. But what happened next? Changed everything. The forgotten bond. The escape pod drifted through silent darkness, its lights flickering weakly. Ethan sat across from Lyra, his pulse loud in his ears, the words echoing again in his mind. You were never fully human. Outside, the stars blurred past in streaks of silver and blue. Yet inside the pod, everything felt painfully still. Lyra kept her gaze lowered, her hands resting on her knees. Glowing faintly in the dim light, Ethan finally broke the silence. Start from the beginning, he said. His tone flat but full of restrained fury. Lyra didn't move. You wouldn't believe me. Try me, he snapped. She looked up then, her eyes glimmering like liquid metal. You were part of a project called Genesis 9, she said quietly. A secret alliance between human scientists and the Vareth Dominion before the war began. Ethan frowned, his mind racing. He had heard the name once in a classified report, something buried deep under layers of redacted text. It was supposed to be about peace, Lyra continued. A shared experiment to create a hybrid that could understand both species, human logic and Vareth empathy combined. She hesitated, her voice trembling. You were the first success. Ethan froze, every muscle in his body tensing. That's impossible, he said. I was born on Earth. I remember my family, Lyra nodded. Those memories were placed there. You were raised among humans to hide what you truly were. Her words burned through him like acid. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then what does that make you? She met his gaze, unblinking. The second experiment, for a moment, neither spoke. Only the hum of the pod filled the space. Ethan leaned back, trying to process what he'd just heard. So that's why they wanted to kill us, he murmured. We were proof that peace between our species was possible. Lyra's voice cracked. No, Ethan, we were proof that they feared what they couldn't control. The pod shook suddenly, alarms flashing red across the control board. Lyra jumped to the console, her fingers moving quickly over glowing runes. They found us, she said, panic rising in her voice. Ethan looked through the viewport and saw dark shapes emerging from hyperspace. 3 Dominion scout ships closing in fast. "Can you outrun them?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "Not in this thing. It's too weak." "Then we fight," Ethan said, grabbing the rifle from the emergency rack. She turned to him sharply. "You can't fight them. They'll vaporize us the second we fire." The ship rattled as a blast rocked the pod from the side. Sparks flying across the cabin. Ethan steadied himself. "Then give me something better," Lyra hesitated, staring at him as if weighing a dangerous decision. Finally, she reached into her robe and pulled out a small metallic crystal glowing faintly. "What's that?" Ethan asked. "A memory core," she whispered. "It contains everything they erased, everything you were." Before he could respond, she pressed the crystal against his chest, and light exploded through his vision. In an instant he was somewhere else. The smell of smoke, the sound of explosions, shouts in the distance. He saw himself, younger, in armor, standing on a burning field, a small alien child trapped under debris. Crying for help, he rushed to her, lifting the wreckage with trembling hands, her silver eyes meeting his for the first time. "You're safe," he had said. "I promise." The child reached for him, whispering his name. "Ethan." The vision shifted. Soldiers shouting. Orders through the radio. "Ward, leave the alien." "She's the enemy." He ignored them, shielding her from falling fire, carrying her toward an evacuation pod. He remembered the warmth of her hand gripping his chest as the blast hit. The light faded, and he was back in the pod. Gasping for air, Lyra was crying silently beside him. "You saved me that day," she said softly. "And they erased it from you so you would keep fighting their war." Ethan felt dizzy, his breath uneven. "I remember." "I carried you out," he whispered. "I told you to run." She nodded. "I didn't. I followed you instead. I became your shadow in every battle after that." Ethan stared at her, realization dawning slowly. "You were there, watching me all this time." "Yes," she said, "because you were the only part of me that felt human." Before either could speak again, a blinding beam struck the pod, sending it spinning out of control. Lyra slammed into the wall. Ethan caught her before she hit the floor. "Hold on," he shouted, gripping the controls. The pod spiraled through the debris field of a destroyed shipyard, metal shards scraping against the hull. "Where are we headed?" he yelled. Lyra coughed, blood shimmering blue against her lips. "There's a moon ahead. I can try to land us there." The pod broke through a thin atmosphere, fire streaking past the windows. Ethan held her tight as the alarm screamed. The surface of the moon rushed up to meet them. Gray dust, jagged rocks and broken structures from some forgotten war. Impact, silence, then darkness. When Ethan opened his eyes again, he was lying in the wreckage. The air was thin but breathable. The stars cold above. Beside him, Lyra lay unconscious, her skin faintly glowing under the moonlight. He knelt beside her, brushing dust from her face. Her pulse was weak, her breath shallow. Ethan clenched his fists, his voice low and fierce. "They wanted to erase me," he whispered, but I remember now, far above. The Dominion ships circled the moon like hungry predators, searching, scanning. Ethan looked up at the sky, his eyes burning with fury. "They'll come for us," he said quietly, "but this time, they'll learn what it means to fear a human." The wrecked escape pod lay half buried in the gray dust of the moon, smoke still rising from its fractured hull. Ethan stood at its side, scanning the endless horizon through the cracked visor of his helmet. The sky above shimmered with faint light, the glow of alien ships searching the surface. They were hunting them, and time was running out. Lyra stirred weakly inside the pod, her skin glowing faintly under the cold light. Her wounds were closing slowly, but her energy was fading fast. Ethan knelt beside her, his voice rough but gentle. "Stay awake." "We're not done yet," she forced a smile. "You sound like a soldier again." "I am a soldier," he said, "and I don't leave people behind." He carried her out, wrapping her in a thermal sheet. Around them, the remains of an ancient outpost stood like ghosts, twisted towers, silent turrets, and rusted machines half buried in dust. "This place," Lyra whispered, "it was once a human base." Ethan nodded. "And it might be our only chance." They entered one of the broken domes, its metal doors creaking under his push. Inside, the air was thin but breathable. Old power cores flickered to life as Ethan reconnected circuits with trembling hands. Lyra watched him in silence, her eyes reflecting the dim light. "You've done this before," she said softly. Ethan smirked faintly. War teaches you to fix anything, or die trying. A low hum filled the air as the generators sputtered awake. Screens flickered, showing human insignias long forgotten. Outpost 17B, operational. The system AI whispered weakly through static. Ethan froze, recognizing the voice. A model used before the final war. He accessed the database, scanning through fragments of data, and then he found it. A classified file stamped Project Genesis. Lyra's expression darkened. "Don't open that," she said quickly. But Ethan ignored her, his curiosity burning through fear. Lines of text appeared on the cracked display. Subject 001, human Verith hybrid prototype successfully stabilized. Neural empathy ratio, 92%. Physical compatibility, 100%. Subject's DNA shared with prototype 002 for emotional resonance imprint. Ethan's eyes widened. Emotional resonance imprint? He whispered. Lyra turned away, tears forming. "It means we were made to find each other," she said. Two halves of the same creation. Before he could answer, the base alarm screamed to life. A crimson warning flashed. Incoming signature, Dominion strike team detected. Ethan grabbed a weapon from the wall. An old pulse rifle, dusted but functional. Lyra struggled to stand, clutching his arm. "You can't fight them all," she said. "Watch me," he replied, loading the rifle outside. Beams of light cut through the dark sky as Dominion troops descended. Armored and merciless, their voices echoed through comms in a harsh alien tongue. Target life signs confirmed. Eliminate both hybrids. Ethan took cover behind a collapsed wall. Aiming through the scope, he waited until the first soldier stepped into range, then fired. A bolt of blue light tore through the air. Striking true, the alien dropped instantly, the others returning fire with deafening blasts. "Ethan!" Lyra shouted, holding out her glowing hands. "Let me help." He shook his head. "You're too weak." But she ignored him, her hands flared, and a shimmering barrier formed around them. Absorbing the plasma shots, each hit drained her strength. Her glow dimming. "Stop!" Ethan shouted. "You'll burn out." "I don't care!" She cried. "I won't lose you again." The barrier flickered and she collapsed unconscious. Ethan caught her before she fell, shielding her body with his own as explosions rocked the base. He glared at the advancing aliens, his fury cold and focused. "You wanted the hybrid," he muttered. "Come and take him." He pressed a button on the old control panel, activating the outpost's defense system. Buried turrets rose from the ground, ancient but still deadly. Red lights flared across the ruins as automated cannons locked onto targets. A storm of plasma fire filled the air, cutting down the attackers in waves. The ground shook under the bombardment, smoke covering the moon's surface like fog. When the silence returned, only wreckage remained. Ethan stood in the dust, his armor scorched, his breathing heavy. He looked down at Lyra's still form, her glow faint but steady. He brushed her hair back gently, whispering, "You saved me again." Then a faint voice came from the communicator near her hand, distorted, mechanical. "Ethan Ward." "This is command," it said. "We've been looking for you." Ethan froze, his blood running cold. Command? Human command? That was impossible. Earth was supposed to be destroyed years ago. He picked up the device, his voice shaking. "Who is this?" Static filled the air, then a calm voice replied, "This is Admiral Kieran of the Terran Reclamation Fleet. You're not alone." "Captain Ward." Ethan's mind raced, but if the humans were back, everything he thought he'd lost was returning. But before he could respond, another sound echoed across the wasteland. The low rumble of engines, deeper and darker than any human craft. Lyra stirred weakly and whispered one word that froze him to the core. "They're here." Ethan turned toward the horizon, black shapes rising through the dust, wings like blades cutting the sky. Hundreds of Dominion war drones descending, their eyes burning crimson. He clenched his fists around the rifle. "So it's a war again," he muttered. "Then let's finish it." The moon of truth dust swirled across the cratered moon as the first wave of Dominion drones screamed through the sky, their red optics scanning for heat and movement. Ethan crouched beside the shattered wall of the outpost, reloading the rifle he'd taken from the ruins. His breath steady but his heart pounding like thunder. Behind him, Lyra lay on the cold ground, her skin flickering with faint blue light, her energy fading with every breath. He looked at her and the strange alien who had saved him. the same one who claimed they were created together, and felt a fear deeper than any battlefield. He wasn't afraid to die. He was afraid of losing her. The communicator crackled again, the Admiral's voice fading in and out. "Captain Ward, do you copy? Reinforcements inbound. Hold position." The message broke into static. Ethan clenched his jaw. Looking toward the sky where the signal came from, there was no help in sight. He turned back to Lyra, whispering, "I'm not letting them take you." He lifted her into his arms and moved deeper into the ruined base, weaving through broken corridors filled with flickering holograms and the ghosts of the past. As he entered a sealed chamber, the doors slid open with a hiss of ancient recognition. A cold voice spoke from hidden speakers. "Welcome back. Subject 001, Ethan froze, his pulse quickening. The lights flared on, revealing rows of cylindrical pods filled with dust and bones, failed experiments long forgotten. At the center of the room stood a massive holographic console labeled Genesis Core Access. Lyra stirred weakly in his arms. "Where are we?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "The place that made us," he said quietly. "The truth you didn't want me to see." He placed her down gently beside the console and activated it. Streams of old data flooded the air, video logs. Human scientists, Verith leaders, their faces cold and tired. A man in a white coat appeared, speaking with hollow eyes. "Hybrid Subject 001 shows exceptional physical recovery, but emotional instability increases when exposed to empathy triggers from Subject 002. Recommend separation before emotional imprint becomes permanent." Ethan's fists tightened. Lyra looked away, tears slipping down her cheeks. "They created us to be weapons," she whispered, "and then feared what we became." Ethan nodded slowly. "They didn't just create soldiers. They created people." The hologram shifted again, showing the destruction of the lab, the outbreak of the war. And one final note: erase memory of Subject 001, Subject 002 extraction incomplete. Before Ethan could process it, the walls trembled violently, the ceiling cracking as explosions echoed outside. The drones had found them. "Stay down!" Ethan shouted, grabbing his weapon and rushing to the door. He fired burst after burst into the smoke-filled corridor, the plasma shots lighting up the darkness. The drones swarmed like hornets. Relentless, mechanical, merciless, Lyra crawled to the console, her hand glowing faintly as she pressed it to the core. Blue energy rippled across the room, connecting her pulse to the machine. "Lyra, stop!" Ethan yelled. "It's too dangerous!" She smiled weakly. "You said it yourself, Ethan. They made us people, not weapons. I'm proving it." The floor vibrated as the entire outpost began to awaken, ancient systems roaring back to life. Turrets unfolded from the walls, defense fields shimmered, and the core pulsed with a heartbeat-like rhythm. Outside, the drones began to fall one by one as the base unleashed long-dormant firepower. Ethan turned just in time to see Lyra collapse again, her glow dimming completely. He ran to her side, shaking her shoulders. "Lyra, stay with me!" Her eyes fluttered open, faint silver light returning. "Ethan," she whispered, "it's not over. They'll send the Reapers next, and the ones who erased your past." He swallowed hard. "Then I'll erase them," she smiled faintly, her fingers brushing his cheek. "That's the human in you," she murmured, "fighting even when there's no hope." He took her hand, gripping it tightly. "You gave me something to fight for." Before either could speak again, a thunderous roar filled the sky. Ethan looked out the broken window and froze. Descending from orbit was a colossal Dominion flagship, its hull glowing with crimson energy. It wasn't a hunting ship. It was an executioner. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. "That's the Red Veil. My father's ship." Ethan turned toward her slowly. "Your father?" She nodded weakly, tears falling down her face. "The one who started the war. He's here." Ethan's voice hardened. "Then this ends today." He lifted his weapon, the moon shaking beneath their feet as the flagship's shadow swallowed the base. Lyra's voice trembled as she reached for him. "If he finds me, he'll destroy everything. You can't win against him." Ethan looked down at her, his eyes fierce and unbroken. "Then I'll remind the galaxy why humans never stop," he said. He stepped out of the chamber as fire rained from the heavens. Above, the Red Veil's cannons powered up, charging with the light of destruction below. One man and one dying hybrid prepared to face an empire, and somewhere in the base's awakening core, a new voice whispered, calm, ancient, and human, Project Genesis protocol reactivation complete. Initiating judgment phase. Ethan looked up at the sky, whispering to himself, "Come for me." The Redemption, the sky burned red above the moon as the Dominion flagship, Red Veil, lowered through the clouds like a god of war. Ethan stood among the ruins, rifle clenched, wind ripping through his torn armor. Beside him, the ancient outpost pulsed with new life, awakened by Lyra's touch, its glowing veins spreading light through the dust like molten rivers. And deep beneath them, the Genesis core hummed, alive, watching, waiting. "Ethan," Lyra's faint voice echoed from behind him. "He's not just coming for me. He's coming for you." Ethan turned. She was on her knees, her body trembling, her glow unstable. "Then let him," he said, eyes locked on the crimson sky. "If he wants monsters, he'll get one." The ground shook as the Red Veil released its dropships, obsidian spheres that crashed into the surface and unfolded into towering war machines. Each step they took sent tremors through the moon. The largest one stopped only meters away, its chest opening like a black flower. From within stepped a tall figure in crimson armor, the Vareth High General, Lyra's father. His eyes were like burning stars, his voice cold as steel. "So this is the human that defied death," he said. "The failed creation that should never have lived." Ethan raised his weapon. "Funny, I was going to say the same about you." The general's claws flexed. "You carry our blood, yet you fight for their kind. You shame your own code," Lyra cried out weakly. "Father, stop. He's not your enemy." But the general's gaze never moved from Ethan. "He is the reason you betrayed your people, the reason our empire fell into chaos. She will die for your weakness, and you will die for hers." Ethan's anger hardened into something quiet, something deadly. He dropped his rifle and stood tall, unarmed. "Maybe I was built from both species," he said calmly, "but I'm more human than you'll ever be." With a roar, the general lunged and claws cutting through air. Ethan dodged, grabbed his arm, and slammed him into the ground with human precision and alien speed. For a moment, time froze. One strike, one breath, one choice. The general rose again, laughing darkly. "You think strength will save you? She is dying, and when she's gone, you'll feel the curse of your own heart." Lyra screamed as the Genesis core flared. Responding to her pain, energy tendrils erupted from the ground. Lightning dancing across the ruins, Ethan rushed to her, shielding her body as the core's power pulsed through them both. The AI's voice echoed again, calm yet thunderous. "Subject 001 and 002 resonance synchronization complete. Initiating fusion protocol." Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "Ethan, stop it. The core is merging us. It's not stable." He held her tighter, his voice steady even as light burned through his veins. "Then we finish what they started." The fusion hit like a supernova. The world turned white, and the air screamed when the light faded. Ethan stood different, his wounds gone, his body surrounded by a halo of shifting blue and gold. Lyra's presence echoed in his mind, her voice calm. "I'm still here, inside you." Ethan looked at his glowing hands, energy crackling between his fingers. He felt her heartbeat inside his own, every thought shared, every emotion linked. They were no longer two beings. They were one. The general staggered back, disbelief in his eyes. "What are you?" he demanded. Ethan's voice was deep, resonant, layered with two tones, one human, one alien. "We are what you feared," he said. "The future you tried to erase." He raised his hand, and the ground itself responded. Old machines awakening, weapons rising from the dust. The outpost's turrets and satellites came alive, guided by their merged will. A storm of light erupted from the moon's surface, ripping through the Dominion forces like fire through paper. The general roared, charging again. Ethan met him halfway, fists colliding in a shockwave that shattered stone and sky alike. "Your kind cannot win," the alien snarled. Ethan's eyes blazed with human fury and alien light. "Maybe not," he said. "But we can make sure you lose." He thrust his hand forward, energy exploding outward, engulfing the general in a sphere of white fire. When the light faded, only silence remained. The Red Veil trembled in orbit, its systems failing as the Genesis core's signal spread through the fleet, rewriting every Dominion code. Ethan fell to his knees, exhausted, his glow fading. Inside his mind, Lyra's voice whispered, soft and fading, "You did it, Ethan. You saved them." He shook his head, tears forming. No, we did it. Her presence flickered, her words like fading stars. If they ask what I was, tell them I wasn't your enemy. I was your reason. And then she was gone. Ethan looked up at the burning sky, the red veil breaking apart in orbit. He whispered quietly, "Goodbye, Lyra," but the Genesis core pulsed once more, scanning his body. Subject fusion stabilized, consciousness preserved. New directive, restoration. Ethan's eyes opened again, filled with light. Not human, not alien, but something beyond both. He rose slowly, watching the horizon where dawn touched the moon's edge. The galaxy had changed, and so had he. The final choice, the red veil, burned like a dying sun above the shattered moon, its wreckage scattering across orbit. Ethan stood alone in the ruins, dust swirling around him, light still flickering beneath his skin where Lyra's essence lived. The Genesis core pulsed behind him like a heart, ancient, powerful and awake for the first time in centuries. But peace was not coming, not yet. From the sky, a new fleet emerged, vast, silent, carrying the banners of every surviving world. The Galactic Council. Humanity's former enemies and reluctant allies had come to witness the aftermath. Their holographic transmissions filled the air, tall alien figures with solemn eyes. One voice spoke first, deep and accusing. "Human hybrid, your war has ended billions of lives. What right do you have to decide who lives or dies?" Ethan looked up at the hovering ships, his voice calm but heavy. "You all created this," he said. "Your fear built the war, your silence kept it alive." The counselor hissed. "And what are you now? A god?" Ethan shook his head. "No, just a man who finally remembers what it means to protect." The Genesis core shimmered again, projecting Lyra's faint figure beside him, a ghost of light. Her silver eyes soft but strong. Her voice, carried through him and the air alike, filled the chamber. "Enough of this. Every species here feared the other so deeply that peace became impossible. But fear dies when truth lives." The council fell silent, the sound of her voice echoing across comms. "She sacrificed herself," Ethan said quietly, "for a galaxy that never wanted her to exist." A new hologram appeared. Admiral Kieran of the Terran fleet. His uniform torn, his eyes tired. "Ward," he said, "the core is unstable. It's rewriting galactic communication systems. If it spreads, it could erase every weapon in known space or every life form connected to it." Ethan's heart tightened. "You mean it's choosing?" The Admiral nodded. "And it's linked to you. Whatever you do next determines everything." Lyra's image flickered, her voice fading. "Ethan, if you shut the core down, peace dies with it. But if you let it complete the link, it could end all war. And all armies." Ethan clenched his fists, dust swirling around him as energy coursed through his veins. "So either I destroy the core and preserve free will, or let it reshape everything." Outside, the Council's fleets charged weapons, terrified of what was coming. Kieran's voice roared through the comm. "Ward, if you won't do it, we'll nuke the moon." Ethan looked at Lyra's fading light and whispered, "Not again." He walked to the core, glowing brighter than a star now, and placed his hand on it. Visions flooded his mind. Every war, every cry, every dying soldier, human and alien alike. He felt Lyra beside him, her presence steady, her whisper calm. Do what they could never do, choose hope. The core began to rise, lifting both of them into a storm of light. The fleets opened fire, beams of energy slicing through the atmosphere. Ethan closed his eyes, his final words echoing across every frequency. "This isn't the end of humanity. This is what makes us human." The explosion tore through space, silent, blinding, eternal. When the light faded, the fleet's weapons went dead, engines silent, missiles frozen mid-air. Guns powerless across the galaxy, every weapon of mass destruction vanished, erased from existence by the Genesis signal. The Council's ships drifted in stunned silence. In the center of it all, the moon was gone, replaced by a sphere of radiant light, slowly fading into starlight. And within that light, for just a second, two figures stood hand in hand. One human, one alien shining as one. Years later, whispers spread across every colony and world. They called it the Day of Silence, the day war died. And at the heart of the new peace treaty, a monument stood, carved in black stone and silver crystal. Its inscription read, "They were not gods, not monsters, just two souls who chose mercy when the galaxy chose fear." But far away, in the quiet dark between stars, a faint pulse flickered, a heartbeat from the Genesis core, and somewhere within it, a familiar voice whispered through the void, "Ethan, it's time to come home."